That's fine. All right. After I moved to Alaska, the first thing I did is ask questions, because I do that my entire life. I was born asking questions, I'm sure. And one of the questions I asked was, who were the first Alaskans? Because based on what you're taught, the first Alaskans are the first Americans. I began to research, because that's another thing that I do. And as soon as I began to research with depth, I realized that what we've been taught is not necessarily what is when it comes to who are the first Americans. I ran headlong into the Clovis barrier. And the Clovis barrier is a date. And the date is 11,700 years ago. And there is a war in academic circles in archaeology and anthropology regarding that date. And there are two camps. One is called Clovis first, and the other is called Pre-Clovis. And I'm an educator, so this is, you know, my antennas are out. Clovis first says that there was no human presence in the Americas prior to 11,700 years ago. I'll give you 4 names of people that are Clovis first. C. Vance Haynes, Alex Herdlicka, Paul Martin, and Tim Flannery. Tim Flannery is an Australian instead of being an American. Along with what they believe that intelligence evolved just like human form evolved. All right, the Pre-Clovis group says that people have been here for a much longer time than 11,700 years ago. In fact, some of the Pre-Clovis people believe that people have been in the Americas for hundreds of thousands of years, which sounds kind of strange, except that in Mexico, underneath the volcanic debris, they found a human skull fragment that dated to 250,000 years ago. And that doesn't even look close to 11,700 years ago. People who are in this Pre-Clovis group, not all of them believe about this that far back in time, but I'll give you a couple of names for that group. It's Thomas Delahaye, James Adavazio, Christopher Hardacre, and Michael Cremo. All of those are researchers in the Pre-Clovis area. At the same time I was looking at that, I stumbled over research regarding Neanderthals, and that's a people that has fascinated me forever. And what I discovered is that the view of Neanderthals as bent over, dark-skinned, not very bright people is not what they found, or what they have documented now through science. They had fair skin, blue eyes, and some of them had red hair. They could speak as well as we can. They didn't just grunt. They had a hyoid bone, which somebody finally found, and they have the genetic marker for language identical to ours. They were intellectually bright. They caught dolphins, and you can't do that from shore. So that meant that they had to be out on the sea. They killed megafauna with spears, which is something I wouldn't want to try. And they survived cold temperatures that our experts would have difficulty with. I mean, we could survive it, but how would you feed yourself over an entire winter? I mean, these people figured out a lot. They buried their dead with ochre and flowers, which means that they had a concept of an afterlife. They cared for their disabled. And I will admit, I was intrigued enough to have my own DNA tested. So you are looking at not a Homo sapiens sapiens, you're looking at a Homo sapiens sapiens. And if you look at my head and take my ears off and my hair off and my nose off, then that equates to 2.9% Neanderthal and 4% Denisovan. And Denisovan is another type of people that live, they just found them recently, and they lived southwest of Lake Baikal in Russia. So my head is the um, ancient woman in me. So I'm not all Homo sapiens sapiens. Part of me is Neanderthal, part of me is Denisovan. Okay. After finding the information that I found after 5 years of research, my thought was, what do I do with it? And again, what I've always done with it is share it. You don't learn something to sit on it, you share it. I'm not credentialed to do nonfiction in this area. It's just, I mean, I have no degrees, whatever. So then I thought, well, what do I do with it? And it dawned on me, you know, how long does this take to figure out? I could write a novel series on the peopling of the Americas. And I could incorporate what I had learned in this 5 years of study. I went to the internet and looked to see what was going on in that area, and there are a few books, but there is no series on the peopling of the Americas that falls into the Pre-Clovis group. And I'm going, oh yes, an empty niche, how clever. So I decided to fill it. And that's how I became a novelist. I sure didn't sit down and say, oh, it'd be cool to write a book. It's hard work to write a book. What came out of that is the Winds of Change series, which is my book series. There are currently 2 books out. And as of today, this is Kitty's Story's 1st anniversary today. This book has been out for precisely 1 year. Manak-na's story, 75,000 BC, came out in June of this year. So it's 2 months old. Kitty's Story is the foundation novel for the series, and it establishes the people. And the people consist of Neanderthals, Homo erectus, and Cro-Magnon, all meeting each other in China. It follows the eruption of the supervolcano called Mount Toba that was approximately 75,000 BC. The second book, Manak-na's story, that's out, is an adventure that he takes from China, Mongolia to Mexico and back in a bamboo boat. And that's got to sound really weird, and I don't know the first thing about building a boat. So I had to contact a person who builds boats and say, please listen to what I've done here to construct a boat and tell me, is this plausible? And he listened, and there was this long, dead silence, and I'm going, oh no. And finally he said, there is no reason at all this would work. I was just going, yes! So that is Manak-na's story. It also adds Denisovans to the mix of people. I am in the process of writing book 3, and book 3 is called Zamimolo's Story, 50,000 BC, so we jump. And it is a migration of part of the people from Asia to Central America. And the 4th book is called Tuk-Suk's Story, 35,000 BC. And it's a migration of people from Siberia to Alaska and south. So these waves are going to be coming in. I'm a workaholic. Retirement is not my idea of sitting in a rocking chair. I have to have something to do. With this series, I found something to do that I love. I love writing it. I can work for 18 hours a day, except when the dogs come and say, we really need to go out, or feed us. And I love editing. That is exciting because it's like polishing your own stuff. I love book signings because it's fun to talk to people about stuff like this. And If you